welcome back to Above the Break. This is episode 8 and the last one in 2025 and the last one for a bit on the Ball Institute Network. I'm your co-host, Ahan Rungta, here as usual with my co-host for the last time for a while, Bobby Stanley. Bobby, how are we doing in the overall life department these days?
We're doing good. It was a pleasant Christmas. We stayed out of the hospital this year, so that was nice. I bought a 1999 Chevy Tahoe, like a Tony Soprano car in great condition. That was kind of my Christmas gift to myself. And then just kind of, this is like that hazy week between Christmas and New Year where I'm technically working, but I'm not really. And I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. And you mentioned the last show, at least for me for a while. Gonna try to detach from social media. I got the brick. That's not a plug for like some app. I bought it, and I'm gonna see if I can get off Instagram and social media for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a Shark Tank product way back in the day called I think it was called No Phone, and it was literally like the product was a like cardboard thing where it looks like you're on a phone, but you're not on a phone.
Yep.
I will not be purchasing that if it's still around. I will still be on my phone. I will still be on my laptop. I throughout 24/7. I'm honestly thinking about sports. It's the quote unquote advantage to not having a real life like you, or like a wife and kids and stuff. It means that I'm gonna put out content for NBA, NFL, everything throughout the break. And even though Bobby, you're not gonna be writing articles for us, after the calendar year turns, I will be. And you can find all that content in our Discord, wap.com/ball-institute. The fantasy football season's over, but I'm still putting out fantasy football content. So I'm going nowhere. So Ball Institute's going nowhere. But let's make good use of our last show together for a while. I take it you have a topic prepared for me rather than the other way around for the first time. Let's hear it.
Yes, we close strong here. So I wanted to do a blind ranking and circle back to someone that we actually talked about earlier. They're in this list, but I'm going to give you 5 guys. You were going to rank them blindly. I have not shared the topic with you before, but one of the guys is someone that we've talked about in the past. So I thought it was pretty cool. Give me 1 second. I'll pull it up. But the topic is top players all time who wore number 15.
Oh, I love this because this is as such an unintentional. I haven't told you what we're doing at the end. An unintentional segue from the start of the episode to the last. Pretty funny.
Okay, so blind rankings. I'm going to throw some guys out there for you. First one, right out of the gate, who we've talked about before, Vince Carter.
Vince, I'm going to put it 4 just because I know the history of number 15, and I'm going to leave the 5 spot for some curveball.
Okay, so Vince Carter at 4. This is where it gets fun. Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, Carmelo, I know who's coming at 1. I hope he's coming at 1, and I have to pay respect, especially given recent events. I'll put Melo at 2.
Wow. Okay, this is where it gets fun. And you went Vince Carter at 4. Hakeem Olajuwon.
Okay, I'm an actual dumbass because I forgot okay, here's the thing. I'm usually the jersey number guy. I forgot that Hakeem got 15 in his repertoire. I would have put him at 2, but I have to put him at 3 now.
All right.
Earl conviction too, because Yep,
I had a feeling you were not aware of Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah, Hakeem at 3. Melo's better. There's the conviction.
All right. Earl the Pearl Monroe.
Yeah, I'm fine with Earl the Pearl Monroe at 5. I pay respect to my elders, but not by enough to put him at 1.
And everyone's favorite player, Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, and Nikola Jokic is 1. I think I did pretty well. I should have swapped Hakeem and Carmelo. There's a little brain fart by me, but yeah, I mean, you wrote an article last week about Nikola Jokic, just what he's doing, and his status in the all-time ranks for the NBA. And every time I watch him play my team, I complain, and I have no genuine reason to complain. And that you kind of like that summarizes the greatness of what we are witnessing, and hopefully what we will witness when he's back from injury.
And unfortunately, after I wrote the article, he got hurt the other night. But I think they said it's only like 4 to 6 weeks, so that should be okay.
Of note, though, that if we're talking about 5 years ago, Nikola Jokic could very well still be the MVP favorite as soon as he comes back. No longer the case because you have a 65 game minimum to win NBA MVP. Funnily enough, both the NBA and NFL MVP races flipped last night because Jokic opened yesterday as the favorite. It's now Shea because Jokic is not going to hit the 65 game minimum.
Hmm.
And of course, the Stafford Drake May situation, but that's not what the show is about. But I was really looking forward to a good MVP race, no matter who the participants were, right? Because we've had that pretty much in every sport the last few years. So I was looking for a race that wasn't going to be a blowout like
Hmm.
the season. Who could still be in the mix now that Jokic is most likely out of the picture. With Wemby also missing games, he's probably out of the picture. We now have Luka as the only guy with a quote unquote fighter's chance with SGA, but I
Hmm.
don't see how SGA loses this if he gets to 65 games.
So you would put Luca up there. Nothing, no nod for Brunson, no nod for Cade, just being 1 or 2 seeds in the East. Just to make noise. Just maybe you close the season strong and you can land in the top three.
Great point. So I should clarify when I'm saying, my previous statement was mostly just like what is realistic by voters, which is what
Hmm.
the odds represent. So per
Hmm.
the betting odds, Luca is the only one with a fighter's chance right now.
Gotcha.
He's currently at around the plus 400 area.
Hmm.
And oh, by the way, I placed 2 MVP bets as futures before the season started. One was Luca, one was Giannis. Obviously, the Giannis thing, I did not think it would pan out this way. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, Luca and SGA, the only quote unquote guys with a chance, according to the
Hmm.
odds. If I were to vote for MVP, I would absolutely put Cade in that conversation, but we know it's not going to happen.
Sadly, no. But that was my game for you. You did pretty well. Obviously, I would have flipped Melo and Hakeem. Vincent Earl is interesting. Earl the Pearl, for those who don't know, I think he played 68 to 80. He got the Knicks their last championship in 73, I think it was. He didn't win Finals MVP. That went to Willis Reed, but four-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year. I think it was first team All NBA his sophomore year. So he had a really good career, probably up there with Vince Carter, but he had a ring. Vince Carter did not. Vince had way more longevity. So I'm
Yep.
okay with how 4 and 5 shook out, but Hakeem over Melo would have been the right way. But that's why we play.
Yep. The joy is a blind ranking, and I mean, you mentioned Jokic getting hurt yesterday. Unfortunately, we got a pretty good game robbed out of us last night between the Nuggets and the Heat. It was tied at halftime, and on the last play of the first half is when Jokic got hurt. Then the Heat run away with it. Second half, no Jokic, no Aaron Gordon, no Christian Brown. Understandable. But it's also a little bit of a testament to the fact that the Heat have lost a lot of games they really shouldn't have because some injuries, inconsistency in their role player group, et cetera, et cetera. But when Jokic went down, you knew the game was basically over within 2 minutes of the second half. A little bit of a testament to the Nuggets, quote unquote lack of depth, which I've criticized before, which
Mhm.
is like one of the routes to this Nuggets under hitting, right? Which is that if one of their superstars gets hurt, it's kind of over. And I hope Jokic comes back ASAP, and I hope that in the games that he doesn't play, they don't pick up too many wins for my future. But Spencer Jones, big surprise, pleasant surprise for me this season. The only Nuggets player that is outperforming by far what I thought he would this season. It looks like it hurts when he shoots the ball, but that shit goes in. And he had 4 straight threes against the Heat last night. It was 3 straight in a quarter, and I believe he hit a 4. He started the game 4 for 4 eventually. Very important player on both sides of the ball for the Nuggets, so he'll get a lot of run. But I wanted to use this segment to talk about those kind of surprises. It's been deep enough into the season where we can kind of start evaluating, like, did I really have a basis for this take? So what are some preseason takes that you had? What's one take about a team or a player that you had that you may want to alter your tune on now that we are headed into January?
I feel like I'll start with the obvious one in the low hanging fruit. I thought San Antonio was a year away. I thought we were going to see them as like a 4 or 5 seed, and they'd be in some games, and we'd really see the development. Bring Dylan Harper Jr. along. and it hasn't been that. They're the second in the West. They've knocked off OKC 3 straight games. They won the NBA Cup. And I think they're real. I mean, if we look at Wemby himself, he's played 20 of 32 games. And of those 20, some of them he's only been partial Wemby. So we haven't even gotten a full set of Wemby games. But obviously, we both love Stephen Castle. I think he's getting some All-Star love, and he should. Dylan Harper, it's a really good rookie class, but you could make an argument that he's a top 2 rookie, maybe behind Cooper Flag right now. The argument is there for him. And I'll walk back my De'Aaron Fox take, where I thought he should not have been extended. They extended him this offseason. He could have been a piece that you dangle and really form the team around the age group of Wemby, Castle, and Harper. That was my take. And I just think it shows. I mean, he's fit in perfectly. He's played awesome. But you can't have too many. You can't have enough guards. And between Castle, Fox, Harper, Vassell, people forget about Devin Vassell. He showed up huge in that NBA Cup game. So I think they're real. And I was wrong about being a year too early. I think their time could be right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm very okay with being critical of my own takes, quote unquote, this early into the season, right? We're not even at the All-Star break. I'm ready to criticize some of my own takes, and I'm much less willing to victory lap something because I'm superstitious. But I mean, it feels like a decent enough time to victory lap that, the takes I had about this Spurs team. And I tweeted the day that the De'Aaron Fox trade happened with the Kings. And I tweeted, De'Aaron Fox has scored 7.6 points per game this season as the pick and roll ball handler play type on NBA stats. And that ranks number 14 among 254 qualified players. And he was running that with Domantas Sabonis and friends. Now he's running it with Victor, and oftentimes it's just Stephon Castle that's running that pick and roll, and De'Aaron Fox gets to play off ball, which is the luxury the Spurs team has. And I called Fox, Wemby, and Castle a big 3, and there was some pushback to that take. I feel like it's reasonable to call them, potentially the next big 3, especially given what Stephon Castle did at those higher stage games, right? Like in the Cup, when the lights were brighter, when they were playing for money, De'Aaron Fox was not 100%. He was not his usual self as a scorer, and Stephon Castle just took on that role, and it's such a great luxury to have. And then off the bench, obviously, like Harper, pleasant surprise for me. I was a little concerned about the prospect profile of a guy that is small and did not shoot the ball well in college, right? So I'm happy to call Dylan Harper part of that.
Yeah. And 2 more guys that we haven't even mentioned yet that I think are really part of the success of this team. Luke Kornet, fantastic signing. I think he had 14 points in the championship against the Knicks for the NBA Cup. Gives you that flexibility. You want to go double big, Kornet could be that guy. So he's one. And then Harrison Barnes. He's quietly having the best shooting season, I think, of his career. He's shooting 38-40% from 3. So those 2 guys as glue guys and giving you the roster flexibility to match up against a Houston, match up against an Oklahoma City or the Knicks, I think is another reason why they are further along than I thought. These guys are making jumps that I wasn't even looking at when I was looking at the big 4 of Wemby, Castle, Harper, and Fox. You have these other guys really filling a role exceptionally well. So I was wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong because I like watching the Spurs.
What we were both right about is that the odd man out of this is the guy that people are tweeting about now saying, where the hell is this dude these days? And it's Jeremy Sohan. So the Spurs have themselves an embarrassment of riches here. And maybe Jeremy Sohan is no longer part of the riches. Just something to think about in a playoff race that I think we both agreed the East was going to be a forest fire. The West might be a forest fire because OKC has not proven to us yet that they can beat the Spurs. So we will find out. Speaking of, the Eastern Conference, I'm happy to admit I alluded to this, I believe, last episode, but I was wrong about the Cavaliers bench being quote unquote much improved. I was wrong about the Cavs being even just as good as they were last year. The only player that's missed every game is Max Strus. And he's valuable, but it should not be this bad. It should not be true what Donovan Mitchell said the other day, that I'm not allowed to have a bad game. That can't be the case for a team that views themselves as a contender. I said Larry Nance Jr. and Lonzo Ball were both quote unquote great additions. I stand by the fact that Larry Nance can be valuable. I don't stand by the fact that Lonzo Ball can be an important part of this playoff rotation. We both saw that, his acceleration is completely gone. I'm actually holding out hope that his shot will come back, because I think shooting does regress to the mean eventually for most people, but all the other stuff that comes with it, he can be like a good presence in the locker room kind of guy that can help the point guards, work with each other. Like Tyrese Proctor can learn from him, stuff like that. Because they that locker room really does respect his abilities as a pass first point guard. But that's where it ends.
Defensively, I'll just play contrarian for 1 second on Lonzo Ball, because I totally agree with you. He hasn't been what either of us expected. Defensively, he gives the Cavs a little, I want to say Alex Caruso, but I saw him guarding Kevin Durant. I see him being a defensive presence for some mismatches depending what personnel they put out on the floor. He can guard a bigger guy. It doesn't make sense. His legs are twigs. But if the shooting can come back, I do think he could be somewhat valuable, but all in all, it's been a disappointment.
Yeah, and the most disappointing part of this is not even Lonzo Ball. It's the fact that you're relying on Lonzo Ball to be what he was like a few years ago. Even with the Bulls when he came back, he was a useful player, but you're relying on that. Why? Because Darius Garland is inconsistent. Evan Mobley has taken a step back. He's just not as efficient as he was last season. He hasn't gained any muscle, which is concerning for me. Like when I talked a few episodes ago about Jalen Johnson getting bodied regularly on defense, that's happening to Evan Mobley. Like that can't be happening. And offensively, it seems like if Donovan Mitchell doesn't have a perfect game, they're going to struggle. And defensively, there's just so many ways to expose them. They need some big moves at the deadline, which I think they will attempt, because everybody in the world can agree the East is wide open. But yeah, I was wrong about the Cavs being the runaway favorite in the East. I should have given the Pistons more credit. I should have given the suspect activity of the East more credit, because the Wizards gave the Cavs a hard time. Yeah, and that should kind of summarize how disappointing it's been. Speaking of the East, you wanted to talk about another team, and I'm happy you do.
Yeah, I was bullish on Orlando, and it's not like a hot take, because everybody was expecting who was going to be that other team besides the Knicks that kind of throws their name in the hat because of what's going on with Tatum. Because Cleveland, they choked in the playoffs. What does that mean for them in the regular season? And they're kind of stuck with this team. Orlando seemed to fit that bill. They go and get a Desmond Bane. They start the year playing a lot faster than I think anybody expected. But they're 18-15. I think they're fifth in the East right now. And it just hasn't been what I was expecting. Now, a lot of that is Franz Wagner was hurt. Paolo Banchero was hurt. But Paolo Banchero kind of took a step back. I don't think – and I'm a big Paolo fan. There's been some regression there. I do like the ascension of Anthony Black. I think he's averaging almost 21 a game over the last 10 games, kind of putting his name in there as a sixth man of the year. But – defensively, this team has fallen off a cliff. I mean, last year, they were a top 5 defensive unit in the league. I don't think they're anywhere near that this season. So, yes, that comes at a price when you're playing faster, but I thought they were going to be a top 3 team in the East, and they're 5 right now, and I don't see the jump they make. Yeah, maybe when Franz comes back, but they got some ground to make up. Maybe they land as a top 4 seed in the East, but then they're looking at another team we'll talk about in a little bit who's gonna get healthier probably after All-Star break. So I'm disappointed in Orlando. It's not the end all and be all. I don't feel as bad about Orlando as maybe you do with Cleveland. I still think they could turn it around, but from what I was expecting, they're not where I thought they'd be in the East.
And I'm glad you brought this up, because it's sneakily like the one team where I had some stances that may be controversial before the season started, but somehow we haven't been really talking about them on the podcast. So before the season started, I had an NBA stream, and people were like, do standings predictions. I'm like, regular season standings predictions, you might as well ask me to pick names out of a hat, because regular season is RNG with injuries, right? And I really didn't want to do this. And I pride myself in having a decent history with playoff brackets. Although maybe that was not the case for the MLB bracket we did this year. But other than that, I pride myself in being good at predicting playoff series, especially in the NBA. I don't pride myself in predicting regular season standings just because I believe they're two different games. It's the long haul of 82 games where you're managing injuries. There's some RNG involved. There's intentional minutes limits involved, stuff like that. Also some testing and some roster turnover, etc. Whereas in the playoffs, you kind of like, if you know ball, like you know the kind of brand a team is going to play in each series. But I'm for the people, so I did a live standings predictions, and I was like, you know what? There's one team that I don't think is ready at all for a deep playoff run. But as the roster stand, they might sneakily be like a regular season merchant. Like think about like that Atlanta Hawks team that was randomly the 1 seed. Mm-hmm. And I said it was the Orlando Magic, and I said bold prediction they're going to be the 2 seed this year. So let's evaluate this take first of all. I mean, we were both high on Orlando as a regular season team. The Knicks are the 2 seed right now. I probably agree with you when we say that the Pistons and the Knicks are better than the Magic. They're the top 2 right now, and they're separated from the number 3 Celtics as of today by 3.5 games, the Knicks and the Celtics. The Magic are only 2 games behind the 3 seed, and yes, the 3 seed Celtics are going to get healthier, but at the same time, like I don't think 2 games is insurmountable, and I'll talk specifically about a couple players that I think can be part of that. But the flip side to that is someone asked me in chat when I did those standings, they're like, so what do you not like about Orlando that you think won't be a problem in the regular season? And I was like, great question. And I think it's that Jamal Mosley is, maybe this can be a controversial stance, but the defensive schemes he played last year clearly worked. They were one of the best defenses in the league. You mentioned that. But to me, like Jamal Mosley is not an offensive mastermind at all. And it sounds weird when I say that when, last we talked about the Magic, I picked the Heat to beat them and then they didn't. But this season, the Orlando Magic, they rank around league average in isolation rate. And I think for this roster construction, that's too much. And what the problem the place that this problem gets highlighted is Paolo Banchero, right? We have people at this point, it's gotten to the point where people are like, why was Paolo Banchero in elite conversations? We're forgetting that we're like a year removed from Paolo Banchero putting up MVP numbers over a span of over a month. We're a year removed from Paolo Banchero, walking into Indiana's house. Indiana made the finals last year, by the way, and their defense was very good in the playoffs. Paolo Banchero nearly had like a 40-point triple-double against the Pacers last year. That was only about a year ago. So what happened between last year and this year? Maybe Paulo's shot did not develop and teams realized that, yes, there were some adjustments made. But to me, like the efficiency of the offense being so much worse when Paolo Banchero has the ball in the clutch is specifically a coaching problem, because every time I watch, it's the same thing. Paolo Banchero gets in the post or Paolo Banchero gets the ball at the top of the key and it's in isolation. And to me, like that's not the game that I saw at Duke. Like if Paolo Banchero was going to be an elite player in this league, it's not because he's going to be LeBron James in isolation. It's because he's going to pick on the mismatches. He's that strong. And he's going to have the ability to, put the ball on the floor in transition and, maybe pull up for 2, etc. Kind of like a quote-unquote Walmart Tatum, but without the skill of Tatum in isolation, right? So what I'm trying to say is I was lower than consensus on Paolo as a Duke fan, as a prospect. I was quick to see all that Paolo Banchero could do in his first couple of years in the league. Mm-hmm. And I've seen enough to amend my take that Paolo Banchero can be a top 10 player in this league, and Jamal Mosley's not doing him any favors. So I think the sequence for the Magic is going to be that they get eliminated in the playoffs, maybe this year, maybe next year, and Jamal Mosley gets canned. And then what happens after that could determine the fate of Paolo Banchero's next big contract. So I still have faith in the Magic as a regular season team, and I stand by the fact that Jamal Mosley is not the ideal coach offensively for this roster construction.
I think the roster construction is kind of where this team meets a crossroads because they're trying to play faster. You could see it. You see they're playing a lot more up tempo, a lot more in transition. But then you look at the roster configuration. They paid Jonathan Isaac, I think it was $84 million last year. He signed a 4 or 5 year, $84 million extension. He's playing 11 minutes a game over the last 10 games. You signed Tyus Jones, who's probably one of the better half court backup point guards in the league. Well, they're not running a half court offense. So you have Goga Badati. He's not going to be a full, sprint the court Nikola Vucevic type player. You have the guys that you have is not matching the game that you're trying to put out there. As a result, we're going top heavy with Tristan da Silva. He's playing extremely well, but when you're playing these guys, you're coming at you're at a disadvantage defensively, and then the personnel you have, the full roster doesn't match what you're trying to do, and I think that all falls on Jamal Mosley. So disappointing all around. Be curious if they do make a move at the deadline because they do have pieces. They have pieces that some other teams may want to take a shot at. Tyus Jones being one, Goga being another, Jonathan Isaac. If you're not going to play him, what are you doing? And then once Franz comes back, it bumps everybody down a peg. So they're not known to be a team that makes moves at the deadline. But if Jamal Mosley's job is hot, his seat's getting hotter, they may have to pull the trigger somewhere.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jonathan Isaac, and we're also, speaking of things we're not far removed from, like we're not very far removed from Jonathan Isaac being one of the best defenders in the NBA, and his offensive game has not improved. And I think Paolo Banchero's playmaking is something that gets a lot of criticism because when he takes a quote-unquote bad shot in the clutch, it's really costly. It makes the highlight reels, right? When Paolo Banchero makes a great pass out of the post, out of what he sees as help defense, and passes it to a wide open corner three, and then the shot is missed, he doesn't get credit for that. And I think Paulo is not getting credit for the playmaking he is accomplishing, and he is getting all the blame for the shots he is missing. So I feel bad for Paulo right now. I still have hope that he can be a real number one, because right now people are arguing about whether he's the number one on his own team. So
yeah. All right, man. Give me the Miami Heat take of the episode.
Yeah, I feel like I've done a pretty good job not talking about the Miami Heat out of turn for most of these episodes, but I've seen enough about Pelle Larsson to say this was the one Miami Heat take I got wrong this season so far, which is that I thought Pelle Larsson would be an inconsistent bench piece that if his shot's not falling, he would be unplayable. This could not be further from the truth. He's shooting 37% from three, which is kind of ridiculous because he's not getting wide open threes all the time. A lot of these are contested. He's shooting pretty well on contested threes. He's shooting well on the open ones as well. But he's also an incredible finisher this season, and that's very important for a team that's trying to rank number one in pace the whole season, and just a transition body that can actually finish, especially now that you don't have Jimmy Butler, who is one of the best of our generation at doing exactly that thing. But also defensively, a year ago at this time, Pelle Larsson was getting switched onto the best guards in the NBA, like the Luka Doncic's, Jalen Brunson's, and getting absolutely fried. It would be a walking mismatch. I remember Jalen Brunson saying, "I don't need a screen," and just immediately drawing a foul. That happened a few times, and then Pelle Larsson has 4 fouls in the first half. And that happened a year ago. This season, he has been perhaps the most underrated defender on the Heat. Davion Mitchell has been good, but we kind of expected that. That's what the trade was made for. Bam Adebayo obviously is the anchor of the defense, but Pelle Larsson has been taking the responsibility of guarding the number one guard on the other team a lot of nights. And not only is he doing that at a very high level and holding them to mediocre games, but he's doing all of that while having a pretty heavy role on offense. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the Miami Heat had a huge losing streak with Pelle Larsson injured. He comes back and immediately they win 3 in a row. It's not correlation causation. It's not an equality kind of thing, but it's definitely positively correlated that the Heat have done really well with Pelle Larsson available and healthy. He's hurt again, and by the way, that's going to continue happening because he puts his body on the line every night, and it is the Miami Heat. They don't really give us updates on injuries. But I got to give credit to Pelle Larsson because this is a second-round pick that's playing like a mid-first-round pick this season. and he was traded on draft night from the Rockets, and it's funny that he plays like the typical Rockets player, but he's been outstanding for the Heat, like arguably the third most valuable player on the team this year. So Pelle Larsson to me is like one of the most improved players this season. Obviously, he's not going to be in that conversation. Joe Johnson, I think I agree with you, is going to win that award, but this is the most improved Heat player. Like, shout out to Pelle Larsson.
I have no rebuttal. I've seen a couple of our friends. I think Prop Bomb, obviously another Miami Heat guy. He had some pretty good takes on him, or at least a couple good bets on him earlier in the season, whether it be overs or unders. But two guys that I always trust when it's Miami Heat stuff, it's you and Jordan. So no, okay. I got one that I was fairly confident in the beginning of the season, and as time goes on, I'm less and less confident, and I'm even reverting where I'm selling myself on what this could be. I thought Jason Tatum was not returning this year. I was hell-bent on saying this is not the year to do it. You chalk it up. You give Jaylen Brown his own year, get your first-team All-NBA, get your shots up. Maybe he builds his stock, and because you have those both contracts, you can get him ready to move maybe in a season, and you make a decision to go forward with Tatum. Tatum is playing this year. Jason Tatum will play basketball this year for the Boston Celtics. They are currently sitting in the 3rd seed in the East. I don't see them getting to the top 2, at least before All-Star. I mean, at least till after All-Star break. I don't see that happening. But what a story this would be, man. If Tatum comes back, they're a top 3 seed, and maybe he plays all of March or like half of March, all of April, and he gets himself into game shape in like 6 weeks. And the Celtics can go on a run here. If they get Philly, Cleveland, or Miami in the first round, I think it's lights out for them. And this could be, because I think you would agree, we never really viewed Tatum like we did the other top players in the league. We never put him up there with Shea or Jokic or Luka. But how epic would it be if this guy comes back, takes this 3rd or 4th seed team, and brings the Celtics back to the finals, where he's given his, he was averaging 26, 8, and 6 last season. We just never gave him the time of day because we're like, oh, it's Jason Tatum, it's the Celtics, blah, blah, blah. I think this could be a career-defining moment for him if he takes advantage of it right. And we could see the Celtics in the finals. I looked it up, dude. They're like 25-1 on DraftKings to win the championship. Not saying you think they're going to win, but they can win the East, and then you're setting yourself up with an awesome hedge situation for whoever comes out of the West.
I think, I mean, I had the opposite take before the season started. I thought Tatum was playing, but we need to take a step back and just like the amount that Tatum has accomplished is also exactly the reason that Celtics fans have accused me before of being overly critical of Jason Tatum. We don't talk about how I'm a Duke fan. I'm overly critical of every Duke player before they get into the NBA because I'm always like, how will this translate, et cetera, et cetera. I had no reservations about Jason Tatum as a prospect. I thought he would be a perennial all-star in this league. When he was actually 19 years old, not figuratively 19 years old, when he was actually 19 years old, and going head-to-head with LeBron James in a playoff series and playing at almost the same level as him, I was like, this guy's going to be a problem for years to come. Then I saw him, have some of the best playoff performances I've seen in my lifetime from a player that young. And he proved so early in his career that he is built for the big moment that in turn, it got me so overly critical of the moments that he didn't come through that people think I'm just like overly hard on him and don't give him credit. Where in reality, like I'm the most fair Jason Tatum evaluator there is because I've seen him struggle in the playoffs when he meets physicality. I've seen my Miami Heat like eliminate him twice and just Eric Spoelstra finding the perfect ways to make Jason Tatum inefficient, right? But I've also seen the opposite. I've seen him hit game winners on Giannis. I've seen him score 50 in a winner-take-all game. I've seen him in a Game 7 against Boston's biggest rival be the best player that of that playoff run. So I've seen both sides of it with Jason Tatum, and I've also met the dude once, and I know for a fact that he deserves everything that comes his way, and the accomplishments that he already has in his career at age 27. It's diabolical. People are going to regret hating on this dude as a man when he retires.
Yeah.
And like durability wise is what people don't talk about the most, because like let's be honest, like how many superstars, we see the 65 game minimum costing Jokic. We've seen the 65 game minimum. You talked about perhaps it costing Wemby multiple times in his career.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time he's had a major injury in his career, and it was an Achilles tear, which, by the way, like everyone in the league is having at some point this season. So I'm rooting for Jason Tatum at this point. I will not be rooting for him if he faces my team in the playoffs. But other than that, I'm rooting for him. And I also have to give credit to Jaylen Brown, who is facing the Tatum coverage now, facing the best defender in the league every night, often running lineups with players that people didn't know were on a roster at the start of the season. And Jaylen Brown has been one of the most efficient superstars in this league, more efficient than Luka as an offense, as a scorer this year, more efficient than Jalen Brunson. How this guy is not an all-star starter as of the first return voting is beyond me, but also like I get the politics behind it. But shout out to Jaylen Brown for being a top 10 player in the NBA this season.
If we're just looking at if we talked about San Antonio earlier, we're just like stacking guards, man. That's the way this is. If you're going to end up competing with OKC, you're going to have to stack guys in the backcourt and who can play the wing positions. I mean, Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, and then I got, I put that up there with Castle, Fox, and Dylan Harper. And then you bring Tatum back. I actually like kind of the other pieces. I like Sam Hauser a little bit. I wish they still had Luke Cornett. But Quita, what's his name? Quita? I can't think of his first name. He's played well. I mean, they got some decent games out of Luke Garza. Not that that's going to be something that shows up in the postseason, but I like what they've done to kind of patchwork this team together on the fly. And they still have the Anthony Simons trade in their back pocket. You will not convince me otherwise that Anthony Simons was not brought in to make a deal at the deadline. And I think they're still heading in that direction. It only makes the Tatum return that much more impactful, that they can go out maybe and move Simons for, another rim protector, something like that, where they really miss Luke Cornett and they really miss Al Horford. Let's take this piece and let's put him over here. What can we bring back? And now we have a squad with, Jason Tatum taking, say he takes 15, 20 games to get himself into shape. It'd be cool. It would be a cool story, and it could be what gets us talking about Jason Tatum differently than we have before.
And I mean, you mentioned the moves that are potentially there. I mean, Robert Williams is sitting there waiting for a potential reunion with the Celtics. But all jokes aside, I mean, Brad Stevens, like, is he the best executive in basketball right now? Arguably. Is he the best executive in American pro sports? Arguably right now, because what he's done over the last few years, from building that championship team by giving up basically only Marcus Smart, and now, from that championship team, immediately cutting ties with the liabilities in the contract situation, the ownership shift, et cetera, et cetera. The little bit of adversity he faced right after a championship, and immediately building a team that's almost brand new if you look outside the core of Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, and Sam Hauser, by the way, who was very important to that championship. Like, outside those four players, the whole team is brand new. And he has built a team that could legitimately win the Eastern Conference 2 years after they won the NBA Finals, with their best player having an Achilles tear. And all that alongside a head coach who I don't think very highly of. I've talked about how his after timeout plays suck. And I don't think he generally does much for this team. I don't think Joe Mazzulla is a needle mover. Given all these circumstances, like Brad Stevens, you always had my respect, even as a head coach. But what you're doing right now is diabolical. The Boston is in good hands.
He should get the nod. I mean, in terms of sports GMs, I would put Howie Roseman up there. As much as a Rams fan pains me to say it, I think what he's done to build that team and get the most out of them is it's wildly impressive. I think they're the most talented team in football, top to bottom. And then Sam Presti's about to get a top 3 pick this year, so let's not gloss over that. But I would put Brad Stevens in the same vein as those guys, because you hit the nail on the head. But
we got to have an SP award, but Ball Institute awards for these random things, right? Like the things we care about, like Executive of the Year.
Dude, I'd throw Les Snead's name in the hat just for replacing Aaron Donald the way he did. Still not as impressive as Howie Roseman, but deserves a conversation.
All right, because of time concerns, I'm gonna cut this segment. Let's close it out. I see the next topic we have on our agenda, and I'm excited to talk about it because I mean you brought this upon yourself. I'm gonna have to bring up my team. Just letting you know.
Well, because we're getting out, and I know this is an NBA show, but we're getting towards the end of the NFL season. I think most would agree. If you've watched NBA, you probably watched some NFL. It really is anyone can win the Super Bowl this year. It seems the most level playing field we've ever seen, and obviously in the NFL, wild cards can get there. We saw with the New York Giants and everything against the Patriots. It can be done in an NBA setting. It is much more difficult because it's a 7 game series. The best team will always kind of prevail, or at least historically that's what it's been. We have the new play-in format now. We have an injury like a Jason Tatum. No, they're not going to be a playing team, but that was a possibility. We have a Jokic injury who's going to curb them for 4 to 6 weeks, where I think we could see them really falling in the West. And even when he returns, it's not going to be full bore. He was 35 minutes a game, so. Will a play-in team ever make the finals? And for them to make the finals, how do you think it would have happened? Is it a mid-season trade? Maybe a team blows it up at the deadline. We've seen it with like LeBron teams in the past. Is it a major injury like a Jokic, where this big guy, this top 3 player has to sit out most of the season? His team falls, but now they're the team you don't want to play in the 6 or 7 or 8 seed. Or 7 or 8 seed, I should say. Could a play-in team win the finals? How would it have to happen?
I mean, Adam Silver has, I think, the most common phrase he has used over the last 3 years is parity is very important in our league. And I think if this was one of his top goals, he's done a good job because we currently have no single team in the NBA where you're like, they are undefeatable because we thought OKC was that, or most people thought OKC was that, before the season started, I said, watch out for the Spurs being the team to upset them. Looking pretty nice of a take right now. But overall, we have pretty good parity. And let's talk about those standings. Once again, I talked about the top of the standings with the East, but the 3 seed Celtics and the 3 seed Celtics and the 8 seed Cavs are separated by 3.5 games. Is this correct? 2.5 games, excuse me. Even better. 3 seed and 8 seed separated by 2.5 games. You look at the 8 seed Cavs, you're like, this is a team we thought might be the 1 seed at the beginning of the season. They can realistically still, if they make an in-season trade, make it as high as the 3 or 4 seed. It's in their range of outcomes. I don't think the Bulls, starting at 9, can do that. I don't think the Hawks or the Bucks can do that. But certainly a team like the Cavs can do that. The Sixers, we talked about their nightmare contracts and stuff. That's going to be a much tougher climb. The Heat are perennially, a team that's capable of being the 4 or 5 seed, but then dumb things happen and they end up in the play-in. But we know that no one's lining up to face Eric Spoelstra in a playoff series, because even if they would win that series, it would be a tough task physically to get it done. The only play-in team to make the finals since the current format was established in the 2021 to 22 season was that Heat team that eventually lost to the Nuggets. That final series wasn't very close, and the nuance to the topic you've asked is, can a play-in team win the finals? If you look at what actually transpired in that Heat playoff run, it was domination, realistically, for the most part. They absolutely shellacked the Bucks. It wasn't even competitive. It looked like the Bucks were the 8th seed. Eventually, they faced the Celtics. And are we old enough to remember how that Celtics series transpired? Because the Heat had a 3-0 series lead. They had a 3-1 series lead. They got completely outplayed in Game 4. The Celtics were never going to get swept as facing the 8th seed. In Game 5, the Heat had that game won. And if Marcus Smart doesn't miss perfectly onto a Derek White rebound to exactly the spot that Derek White was standing, it wasn't a box out. It was a lucky bounce. If that lucky bounce does not happen, the Heat win that series in 6. Then they face the Knicks. another series that was kind of easy, and then
Mhm.
Jimmy Butler gets hurt, and his ankle was the size of a watermelon entering the NBA Finals, and we knew at that point the series wasn't even going to be competitive.
Mhm.
Uh, I stand by the fact that if the Heat had stayed healthy, if Tyler Hero was actually healthy, remember he did not play a single game in the finals. If Tyler Hero was fully healthy, if Jimmy Butler was fully healthy, that Heat series would have been competitive. I think the Nuggets would have won in 6 or 7, but it would have been competitive. So what you're telling me is that in the few years that we've had a play-in format, we've already had an 8 seed that not only made the finals, but looked dominant in their East playoff run. I certainly think we're going to, within the next 5 years, have a play-in team that is going to make the finals again. And potentially within the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to have a champion that's a play-in team. The routes, obviously, the obvious ones are, like you said, like Jason Tatum coming back from an Achilles tear type beat. But instead of the Celtics being the 3 seed without him, they're the 8 seed without him, and
Yeah.
they're a play-in team. But when he steps on the court, they're obviously not a play-in team.
Yeah.
That's the obvious route. But to me, all this this tells me is that if Adam Silver does not shorten the format of the NBA season, injuries are going to continue to happen. And it's something that Devin Booker's brought up, that LeBron James has brought up. I'm thinking of players that have explicitly said that the season should be shorter. Several players have said, like, cut the road back-to-backs. Like, this is nonsense. There's no reason we need to do that. Shorten the season by a few games. If Adam Silver does not oblige to that, injuries are going to keep happening. We know for a fact that several championship runs, depending on what your agenda is, have quote-unquote asterisks. You can put an asterisk on every championship because someone was possibly hurt on that playoff run in your victory.
Mhm.
Injuries are going to keep happening, and as a result, it is possible that the best team is not the higher seed. It is possible that the best team does not win a series, even if it's 7 games, mostly because of injuries. And load management is going to get so much more analytical than it already is that teams will be okay hanging out in the 6. I was going to say 6-7. These teams are going to be okay hanging out in the 5 to 7 range, just because they're like, it doesn't matter as long as we make the playoffs. We'll have all our players healthy then.
Mhm.
And there's eventually going to be a team that's so good that no one wants to face them. They're going to be a playoff menace, well coached, deep shooting team, somewhat like the Spurs that we've talked about, that hang out in that 5 range because they're okay with being the 5 seed. And then at the end of the season, because they messed around too much, they were a play-in team. And they're going to win that play-in game, and then they're going to play like the 1 seed 3 straight series, like the Miami Heat did a few years ago. And I stand by the fact that the Miami Heat could have looked like a dominant team 4 series in a row if they had health. So to me, like, it's too small of a sample size
Mhm.
for me to objectively say, like, the way the play-in games have been have panned out so far is going to be like how it is. It's too small of a sample size for me to say the Heat were an exception. So to me, like, I don't think the Heat are an exception. They were the first. They won't be the last.
Okay. No, I agree. I agree with kind of your timelines. In 5 years, we'll see another playing team in the finals, and maybe 10 to 15, we get a champion. I was looking for it more towards this season. Like, what team could make a move, particularly in the West? I don't know why, but I think in the West, Memphis I would take out. Portland I'd take out. They don't have championship capability. Golden State, they finally move on from a Moses Moody and a Kaminga. What can they bring back? Because then I think you have Steph and Butler and Draymond and Piece X, whatever that is. And you have the coaching, you have the experience. That could be one. Dallas, I know they're 12 and 22. They're in the 12th seed right now. They are 2 games out from the 10 spot in the play-in, which I think they can get to with no problem. If Kyrie comes back, when Kyrie comes back, you have Cooper Flag. I'd be curious, are they a team that could be in the LeBron business at the deadline? I think he would approve. And then maybe you have Kyrie, Cooper Flag, LeBron James. They probably let Clay go in that deal to go give a shooter to LA. but it would be interesting to me, especially if they make a move for Anthony Davis in Atlanta. Could they be a team if you can avoid OKC in the first round? Meaning, if you could get to that 7, if you get to the higher seed, that 7 spot where Phoenix is, maybe you get San Antonio in round 1. Can you catch them off guard? You're probably not beating OKC, but what teams could make a move and potentially fit that mold? Golden State and Dallas immediately stick to me. And then in the East, you've probably seen this meme floating around Twitter this week. The same 3 teams in the East have made the play-in all 4 years of the play-in. It's Chicago, it's Atlanta, and it's your Miami Heat. So that one I'm less concerned about. And no one in the East in the 7 or 8 spot is making a final. Maybe Miami. I won't say never. Maybe Miami. Not so much this year, but in the West, I think it's possible. Something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I don't think. Obviously, I agree with you. Miami Heat's not making that finals run without that Jimmy Butler character around. Yeah. Funnily enough, that one of the teams you mentioned currently has Jimmy Butler, the last leader of a finals run from a play-in team, and I definitely think the Warriors are in that conversation because when you have Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, the playoffs are a little bit easier of an environment. I'm not saying an easier of a series, an easier of an environment for you. Then maybe like if you're the Rockets, like you're way better than the Warriors. It's not even close. Yeah. But the Rockets have Kevin Durant and then a bunch of young players that are really good. The Warriors have Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler. Could that series be fascinating? I absolutely think so. You mentioned Dallas. I don't think they have even a fighter's chance, even if they trade for LeBron. I stand by the fact that Jason Kidd is not a good head coach, and if it were not for Luka, he would not have a job right now. Maybe we can argue this in the DMs at a later time, but I'm going to say no to Dallas. It's the low-hanging fruit of Phoenix. Like the previous segment, I was going to talk more about Phoenix. Let's just talk about them now. They just happen to sit in the 7th seed. They're minus 250 on FanDuel Sportsbook to make the play-in tournament. If they win that play-in tournament, they get the 7th seed, and they draw, let's say the Nuggets go on a huge run, or the Rockets go on a huge run, and one of those teams get the 2 seed. I don't think the Suns are beating the Spurs. I absolutely think the Suns have a fighting chance in a series against the Nuggets or the Rockets, or even the Lakers if the Lakers go on a weird run at the end of the season. I think they have a chance to pull off that upset in the first round. I mean, they have Devin Booker, who is not only played in the NBA Finals, but played like a superstar in the NBA Finals. They have Dylan Brooks, who, by the way, like I would probably rank him as a top 25 NBA player if we're only talking about this season. And they have they have a coaching staff that has made them one of the most efficient transition and isolation defenses in the NBA. And offensively, there's no weakness on that team. They have isolation candidates. They have pick and roll that's very efficient. And they have like 5 guys that have spot-up shooting capabilities. So the Suns are deep. They're well coached. They seem like the kind of team that no one wants to face. So I don't think it's going to be this year that we see a play-in team make a finals run because I don't see the prime candidate for it. But the low-hanging fruit of Phoenix, if someone's going to do it, it's them.
I would put my hat on Golden State. I think they got a move to make. I think this is the last real prime Steph Curry year we see. You can make the case for Butler, not that he's in his prime anymore, but he could still give you playoff Jimmy. I believe that. And they have the coach for it. They have the experience for it. And they have the pieces to go and get something of significance. Somebody will take a chance on Jonathan Kuminga. Somebody will take a chance on Moses Moody. They also have Pajemski. So they have pieces to dangle. But if they do that, that's it. That's the end of the run. Your future is cooked. It's over. So if there's a move to be made to push all in, some lesser team may take advantage of it. I don't know if it's a CJ Cullum and a Chris Middleton. Could be that fit in Washington. You bring those 2 guys over, and now you have a squad of 5 vets that are all ring hunting. So I would put my hat on Golden State. Do I think it's going to happen this year? No, probably not. But they would be my best bet. I still need to watch more Phoenix. I hate Dylan Brooks so much. It's hard for me. It's hard for me to enjoy anything about him.
I feel you on the Golden State stance, though. And if Jimmy Butler makes the NBA Finals again, I'm going to be obnoxiously happy for him. So I'm on board with it.
I didn't like him chanting "white boy" last night at Wolf for the Nets, but I understand.
I need to like pull some strings and figure out what like there has to be.
I'm guessing, was his name Danny Wolf? I'm guessing Danny Wolf was talking an obnoxious amount of shit he shouldn't have. So maybe it was deserved.
Also, like every single time Jimmy Butler has talked his talk mid-game, I feel like he is in the right and he ends up just frying them. I don't remember a scenario where he was talking that much in-game and then he was the one getting cooked in-game. That's literally never happened. But also, like, Jimmy Butler saying that when Jimmy Butler is probably one of the whitest dudes in the NBA, which I am too. I love country music. You know, I love, you know, I love all the things that come with quote unquote white culture. So I completely understand that. I thought it was pretty funny.
It was funny. I laughed my ass off. So I'm not actually mad. I'm rooting for Jimmy Butler. But all right, Ahan, take us home, man.
All right, last episode. It is currently December 30th. If you are watching this at a later date, it is LeBron James' 41st birthday. One last ride, one last chance to glaze LeBron James, my GOAT, my glorious king. So we're going to play a game, and it is technically LeBron James themed. We're going to celebrate his 41 years of life. So it's 5 levels. Don't say the same thing as me. Levels 1 through 5. All you have to do is name a player that fits that category. It better be in that category, otherwise you lose. It has to be in that category, but also not the one player that I have on my phone here, and I'll show you who I have on my phone. Okay. We'll start level 1. Name any player who has been a teammate of LeBron James in his career. You have over 200 options here, so you can't lose.
Sure. Go Anderson Varejao.
Perfect. I have Mario Chalmers, my favorite LeBron James teammate. All right, you have passed level 1. Level 2, we're going to stay on the LeBron James theme. Since LeBron James is born in the United States, name any active player born in the United States.
Any active player born in the United States?
Any active player. You have over 100 options here.
Cooper Flagg.
Cooper Flagg, you survive. I have Keontae George.
I like that.
Keontae George mentioned W. Now it gets a little bit tougher. Name any NBA MVP. I believe as of today you have 36 options. Any player to win NBA MVP.
I would go with the obvious one because I just wrote an article, but I don't want to guess the same one as you. So a regular season MVP, I will say Kevin Durant. Oh, I thought you were gonna do Jokic just because I messaged you. I mushed him.
I had to mention my favorite non-Heat player of all time. What is this?
That's wild.
Lost on level 3. That is crazy. I'm gonna play levels 4 and 5 with you because we're not gonna have another podcast. We got it. We got to see. Would you have survived levels 4 and 5? Level 4. LeBron James this season is averaging 20 plus points per game. He's averaging, I'm sorry, put the sound effect in, Andy, 6.7 assists per game. Mm-hmm. So you have 16 options here. Name any player other than LeBron James this season with 10 plus games played and 20 points per game and 6 plus assists per game.
Ooh, I'm not going to look it up because that would be cheating. What's the point of that? Who's averaging 20 and 6 who's played 10 games? I'll say a guy that you mentioned before. Is Keontae George one of them?
This is actually absurd. I had Keontae George again. I wanted to make this a Keontae George love segment because I wanted to shout out Keontae George for being awesome this year.
I'm trying to see who another is, just for the sake of the conversation. Is Austin Reeves another one? Is he averaging?
Yeah, so the full list is, I believe this is in alphabetical order. Yes, Deni Avdija, LaMelo Ball, I did not want to have to acknowledge that. Devin Booker, Jalen Brunson, Cade Cunningham, Luka Doncic, De'Aaron Fox, Keontae George, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, James Harden, LeBron James, Jalen Johnson, Nikola Jokic, Tyrese Maxey, Jamal Murray, Austin Reeves, and Alperen Sengun, all 17 players.
Sengun I wouldn't have got, but
you know what this proves? we are truly as co-hosts and people who've known each other for a few years now. We are truly on the same wavelength. I thought that maybe because you would have gotten to level 4, maybe I would have tricked you on level 4 because you wouldn't have said Keontae George again. But yeah, Keontae George, shout out to him. Like Will Hardy, good NBA head coach, by the way. I'm happy that the Jazz are finding some things that are good. The last level was the impossible level. So name any player other than LeBron James with 400 plus points, 150 rebounds, 30 plus steals, and 20 plus threes in their first 25 career games. So LeBron James, as a young lad in 2003, did this, and only 3 other players have ever done this in their first 25 games. So 400 points, 150 rebound milestone, 30 steals, and 20 threes. Only 3 other players have ever done this.
I've got a guy random one. If I think I may get this. Is Tyreek Evans one of them?
Tyreek Evans is not one of them, but I love the sick pull. One of the craziest rookie campaigns of our lifetime.
I was a fan of Tyreek Evans, but now he immediately came to mind when you started spitting that out. But give me those guys. I'm curious.
Yeah, so the obvious ones, LeBron James has done this. Victor Wembanyama has done this. Cooper Flagg just accomplished this, which is why it's relevant these days. And the last name, I said it was a good segue from the beginning of the show. Carmelo Anthony did not, until I looked this up, I forgot that Carmelo Anthony did this. Like, to me, like Victor, LeBron, Cooper Flagg, like these are the obvious ones. Carmelo Anthony, the only non-number 1 overall pick to accomplish this. So shout out to Melo.
There's NBA circles that really feel that you could have gave Rookie of the Year to Melo that year over LeBron. And I'm looking at his stats now. He averaged 21, 6, and almost 3 assists per game on 42% from the field. But if you remember, I think Denver was like somewhat competitive that year. Finished 14th in MVP voting as a rookie. And then he was like 13 All-NBA his 3rd year in the league. So there's people who think Melo could have and should have won that Rookie of the Year award over LeBron, but it was LeBron and the NBA couldn't go away from that.
I also find it interesting. It was only like a week ago or something that I heard that I think Carmelo was on a popular NBA podcast, and he was talking about like the shift in roles he's had over his career. And one of the reasons like I wasn't the hugest Melo fan, like as he got later on in his career, like Knicks onward, was that like it seemed that he wasn't very open to being like a team player. Like it seemed like he was a diva, but like obviously like divas are very common in this league, but like him being a diva really came in the way of his career, because there was the time that he went on the Rockets and he said like, oh, he didn't want to play in a certain role, and he expanded upon this, which I'll talk about. But most notably, like when he went to OKC, like someone asked like, oh, are you going to come off the bench? And he was like, me off the bench? Like, hell no. Like, so to me, like that part of that part of Carmelo's career, I'm thinking of unlikability. I thought of LaMelo, but that part of Carmelo's career kind of made me not love him as a player. But what he did in the beginning of his career, it kind of ties nicely into what he said last week on a podcast. He said, I got to Houston and they're like, in Houston, where Mike D'Antoni and this analytics era is, we're going to cut down on mid ranges, right? There's only 12 mid ranges in a game allowed, and there's a type of mid ranges that we want people taking and stuff like that. But we're going to be transition, layups, dunks, and threes, right? And this is the new offense we're running. And Carmelo's like, I bet 12 mid ranges in a game, that's fine. And
I'll take all of them.
And then he's just like, all right, so CP can shoot 4 of them, and Melo can shoot 3 of them, and then we have to split up the rest. And he's like, did you just say I'm shooting 3 mid ranges the whole game? I thought I was shooting 12. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, I got his stats pulled up now. He started 58 games in Portland at 35 years old. He averaged 15 a game. He shot 43% from the field, 38% from 3 in Portland at like his 3rd to last year. No, man, he was a good player. He was someone that he was kind of my generation. That I was big on Melo. He was a New York guy. I love seeing him with the Knicks. And then the end of his career, you can like look at these random stops. Finished his career with LA, averaged 13 a game with the Lakers in that 21-22 season on 26 minutes a game. Kind of interesting. They showed a stat. It was like the Christmas Day game, I guess that 21-22 season. And it was the Nets against the Lakers. And it was like an all-star team from 2010, like between both sides. Blake Griffin, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, Patty Mills was in the game. There's a couple guys that are escaping me, but it was just like holy crap! Look what this game was. So we got a lot of Carmelo Anthony references on our last episode from my 15 plus and now closing out, and I'm not mad about that.
Yeah, Bobby, it's been an absolute pleasure hosting the podcast with you over the last couple of months. Obviously, it's not an obituary. We're going to talk to each other all the time, and you're still in the Ball Institute Discord. You're hanging out. If we ever do a one-off episode, in the near future, maybe I will find a way to, when you're living in the woods, I will find a way to find you and contact you and lure you into talking some NBA. But it was a fun show today to close it out.
I think that would be awesome, man. I would be happy to be back. I just need a brief break from all this phone and constant Twitter crap. But I'll still be watching basketball every night. That does not change. My big screen is the screen that I'm focusing on, not my little one. But no, thank you, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And if we have viewers that do want to follow Bobby for the one tweet he makes per month after this, I recommend it because I'm gonna ask Bobby when the Rams play playoff games, and I need to pick the right touchdown score. I'll talk to him about that. So if you want knowledge, I have some knowledge. Bobby has a lot of knowledge as well. So go follow him at Prop Holiday, and be in the Discord for more content through the NFL playoffs, through the remainder of the NBA season. The content's going nowhere. And we'll see you for a future show talking some more NBA.